We are live on the Thursday, I should say, before the Super Bowl. Matt and Jim here. Matthew, everything is rolling up to the big day. And one of the interesting things that came out this morning was Tom Brady, of course, was asked who he'd be rooting for. And he just said he would be rooting for a good game,
Hmm.
which set off Patriot Nation crazy. Um, and you know, what else is he gonna say? It's like, he now works for his the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks is now his new head coach.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, it, Obviously he played for the Patriots. I don't know what they expect him to say.
Yeah, it was a PC answer. It's politically correct.
Right.
Um, that's all you were probably ever going to get out of Tom Brady. He is a minority owner in the Las Vegas Raiders right
Right.
now. He works for Fox. Part of his job is to try to hold his biases back.
Hmm.
Um, he's in the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
He played with Mike Vrabel. I think a lot of it is just show. I think people are getting a little bit upset over honestly what is nothing. I get it. He's the greatest quarterback to ever play. He played the majority of his career
Hmm.
in your uniform. You do have a right to kind of want him to explicitly state that he's rooting for
Hmm.
your team. But it's not a requirement of him, and it shouldn't be a requirement of him. He has other people that he has to please, and
Right.
I know that it's not an answer that pleases anybody who is a fan of New England or
Hmm.
played those Mike Vrabel football teams, because there are people. Asante Samuel was on Twitter. I think Vince Wilfork made comment to it. These guys were talking about. They're like, man, like what are you talking about? Like we played with Vrabel. Why are
Hmm.
you not supporting him? And I don't think it's him not supporting Vrabel or not supporting Drake May or anything like that. I think it's simply that's the answer that he kind of has to give right now.
Of course. And the other part of the question is what we don't know is what's going on behind the scenes, right? How many texts he sent out to Mike and to all of the players and to Mr. Kraft and all the people that he was involved with. Because in fact, the matter of fact was, it was always Brady and Belichick. It was never Brady and Kraft. It was never Brady and any of the other players. It was always Brady and Belichick. Um,
Yeah.
so I can't imagine with all the time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears that he put in as a patriot, that a large part of him would like to see the Patriots win. Um, he is in an awkward position because he's got to deal with Fox. He's in an awkward position because he has a situation with Kubiak coming on as his offensive coordinator. Um, it is the PC thing, but I think behind the scenes, which we will never see, but behind the scenes, I think Tom is just being Tom. I got to be PC in front of the cameras, but I can call my buddies and say, hey, look, guys, I hope you win.
Yeah, and that's the most likely sentiment behind those closed doors. But you never know, and you
Mhm.
really can't ever know. It'll
No.
never be something that can be, it an appetite that can never be conquered. So people get up in arms. They get up in arms about a lot dumber things, but this is
Mhm.
everybody needs something to talk about on Super Bowl week. Why not make it one of the biggest names in the sport, and Tom Brady?
For the moment, anyway.
Hmm.
There'll be other things to talk about, hopefully. Um, from the standpoint of, we've been, I know NFL Network and ESPN and everybody and their grandmother has been involved in what seems to be a 7-day pregame show.
Hmm.
When is enough enough?
Yeah, it just never will be. I mean, at this point, you go through and you see all these booths on Radio Row,
Mhm.
and they're all everybody makes stops at every other place. It's just circulating the same opinions on different platforms over and
Mhm.
over again, the same words over and over again. You can only say so much about one game. I get that it's the Super Bowl. I get that it's a spectacle, and there's a lot of off the field stuff that you can talk about that can make headlines leading into it, and that helps fill some of the airtime. But in terms of what you're actually learning about what is going to go on those sidelines and between those sidelines for 60 minutes come Sunday, it is limited to none. I mean, it's just filling the air at this point with how long it takes. Because I mean, they'll probably do, what is it, probably an hour and a half, 2 hours of pregame coverage too, leading up to it.
You mean on NBC?
Yeah. So they've got that, which is, it's plenty of time to get your points across. But then when you have that coupled with 7 days of media coverage surrounding one football game,
right?
Like they didn't even normally. You used to kind of have that little bit of a break for the Pro Bowl. We talked about it. That break's gone. The Pro Bowl happened on Tuesday, I believe it was. I had no idea. I was aware that it was at the start of the week. Didn't know it was played. I saw like a clip or two on Twitter of something that happened in it. And that was it. I had no idea. Actually, to be honest with you, what happened is I was scrolling through Instagram and I followed Georgia football, and there was a highlight reel of George Pickens. I was like, oh, did they post the highlights from his game last year?
Right.
Because it's tonight. No, it was the night before. Those were the highlights from this year. So it's a non-event now that doesn't really give you that stopgap in between the championship games and the Super Bowl.
I heard Warren Sapp this morning, and one thing you don't have to worry about with Warren is he will give you an opinion. And asked him about the Pro Bowl, and he said, look, as far as I'm concerned, and he made the Pro Bowl, I think, like 6 or 7 times. He said, it's what they should do is just name the Pro Bowl players and not play anything. He says, there's no need to even play a game. He goes, even when I played the game, it didn't make any sense. He goes, nobody was really trying. He goes, we were all just out there having fun. It was like a 7-on-7 drill. He said one time, I forget who it was, and I don't know that he even remembered who it was, but he said that there was a guy who, accidentally he got hit, and he hurt himself, and it didn't ruin his career, but it certainly set back his time to play in the off season because he had to rehab the whole time. So at the end of the day, I kind of agree with Warren that just name the Pro Bowl players as the best players on from both conferences, and forget the game. Nobody gives a damn about the game.
Yeah, like they used to care. It hit a bit of a peak after, everything peaks and valleys.
Sure.
It hit a valley in, I think it was 2006, and then they were able to regain some of the popularity of the Pro Bowl there in the mid 2010s. But after that, after they've changed the formatting as well, we've reached a new valley with the Pro Bowl viewership. And it's one that, with the changing of the format, I'm not sure they're going to get back. I don't think the numbers are going to go back up. I don't think you're going to have that same peak that you were able to achieve without another changing of the format back to something a little more traditional. But even then, you're dealing with a relative cap on who's going to watch that thing in general, because it's an exhibition football game. It's an exhibition football game the same way the Reese's Senior Bowl is an exhibition football game. Like, you're not getting all these college football fans that turn on the Reese's Senior Bowl because, my favorite college football player's playing in the Reese's Senior Bowl. That doesn't matter. You're going to see them for 2 drives. It's in a very limited capacity of what they're doing. It's very obvious that they don't care. Well, for the Pro Bowl, the Senior Bowl, these guys are playing for draft positioning. But for the Pro Bowl, it's obvious these guys don't care. You're not getting the product that you really want or sign up for. It doesn't feel like football, even when they played the actual game.
Right.
And so it just doesn't have an appeal at this point.
And Warren had mentioned, he said, that was back when Bo Jackson was still playing.
Mm-hmm.
and he said there was a handoff to Bo Jackson. Bo, was never played half, half speed. He always played, the whole time. And so he says he saw Bo, rushing back at him. And he said, I stepped aside, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, tag, you're it. He said, I'm not going to try to tackle Bo Jackson at full speed. And he goes, that's crazy. He goes, if it were a game, yeah. But in the Pro Bowl, I don't give a damn if he scores.
Yeah, go ahead. What does it matter? What did we
Yeah.
lose? We lost nothing. Like there's no stakes involved.
Right.
I think that's a good thing that the MLB did with their All-Star games. Like it
Mhm.
matters. There's stakes to it
Mhm.
in terms of home field advantage in the World Series, unless
Right.
that's changed recently.
It did change, but,
They did.
yeah.
Well, they used to have stakes attached. You
Yeah.
either have to attach stakes or you have to attach a high enough dollar sign for these guys to care. That's nothing that's happened.
Right. Well, back in the day, and we're talking way back now, we're not talking anytime recent, back when players actually had to have another separate job after football season because weren't paying a lot. Uh, the winner of the Pro Bowl got $15,000, and the loser of the Pro Bowl got 7,500. So that actually could determine whether you had to work during the off season or you didn't. So that was that. But I do think now we've gotten to a point where just pick the players because a lot of these guys are opting out anyway. So if they're going to opt out and not play, what's the sense? And it just seems to me to be a silly thing that seem to be hung up on for some crazy reason. But hey, they got to do something. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Patriots and their roll back to getting back into the first time since the Belichick era that they're back in the swing of things. Let's talk about the quarterback spotlight, and lots has been said about Bryce Young. He's matured, he's poised, he's an efficient leader, but is he ready for the bright lights?
Are you speaking to Drake May?
Did I say Bryce Young?
Yeah, you said Bryce Young.
Well, I would prefer Drake May. Yeah,
okay,
that would be the guy.
Yeah, relatively inexperienced in terms of his playoff, but you could have said the same thing about Sam Darnold. They've played the exact same number of playoff games to my knowledge. Drake got 3 this year. Sam has 2 this year and 1 last year, which got, Minnesota got handled by the Rams last year. I'm very curious to see Sam Darnold against that Patriots defense. I know it's not what we let in with, but Drake May himself, there's been so much made about his performance and not a lot of light shed on Sam Darnold's performance. The matter of fact is they were in 2 different circumstances with 2 very different conditions.
Sure.
Sam Darnold, he was efficient against San Francisco. He threw for, I think it was like 140 something. 12 of 17. That was all they needed out of Sam Darnold's arm that night,
right?
For the most part. And then he threw for like 340 against the Rams and had 3 touchdowns, which is a really good stat line. Against any defense, the Rams defense isn't very good, so you have to take that stat line with a little bit of a grain of salt. You have to remember what Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers did to that defense earlier. They were far from a perfect defense in Los Angeles. And then you turn it around, and people have been very critical of Drake May and his performances. But again, you go back and you look at it, and he's playing in that cold snap in New England. And the weather's pretty nasty throughout all 3 of his playoff games. It's freezing cold. And he shows up and he performs. He to a degree where they got the wins. Like that's what's important. He outplayed Justin Herbert in that first football game, which is really probably his best game. That second game, he had a bunch of turnovers, but it didn't matter because, Houston couldn't score the football. And eventually he got things going enough to muster up some offense and give them a safe win. And then in Denver, he did exactly what he was asked. And what he was asked to do was he was asked to turn around and hand that football off, especially in that second half. And they were going to make Jared Stidham beat them with his arm. every time that was always the game script. Like, you can criticize these numbers, and that's fine and that's fair, and you can criticize their path and what have you. But when you just look at it and you're criticizing, if you were to criticize Drake May's performance in the AFC title game, I'm very curious what they would have done if they were a sitting head coach, because I would have done the exact same thing that Mike Vrabel did. Yeah, we're taking our second-year quarterback on his first road start in the playoffs, and it's for the AFC Championship. The other team has a backup quarterback in. What are we going to do? We're going to make that backup quarterback beat us in this football game. They have a very good defense. We're aware of that. We're not going to put our second-year quarterback in a position to lose us this football game. What we're going to do is we're going to protect him in every way that we can. And the second that weather got bad, that they didn't need to throw the football anymore. They didn't have to do that. That honestly, probably as soon as that snow started falling, Josh McDaniels probably looked at that play sheet where the passes were and just ripped that section right out of it, because they were not throwing that football again. So he's got a really good shot at winning this football game. I feel a lot better. I went back and I looked through this stuff, and I feel a lot better about Drake May and the Patriots offense, thinking about the conditions and thinking about the defenses that they've played and digging into some of Seattle's stats. Their defense is good, but it's not as good as really I think I, in my mind, had them pegged to be. Drake May's probably going to finish second in MVP voting, and there's a reason for that. So this is a guy who's second in MVP voting, and he's going to show up like he deserves that spot on Sunday.
The one of the interesting things I saw, the Boston Globe did a deep dive, and they said that this Patriots defense that we now have under Mike Vrabel is statistically the best defense they've had in almost a decade.
Wow. I mean, and that's what –
and it's been overlooked.
Yeah, when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, like with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick,
right,
the biggest – or consistently the biggest knock on Tom Brady and the number of Super Bowls that they won was based on, well, what did Tom Brady's defense, like what was their defense ranked? And it was consistently ranked in the top 10. Like every single time they won a Super Bowl, they had a really good defense. And that's where like it underlies. Seattle's defense kind of underlies what Sam Darnold did in the NFC Championship. Patriots defense underlies Drake May and Mike Vrabel and the storyline that is those two guys. You know, Drake May year 2, Mike Vrabel year 1. They've been the storylines, but the improvements have been made on the defense. They went out and they got a corner opposite of Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. They went out and got Milton Williams to play in the middle of that defense. You know, they went and they spent their money, and they spent their money on the defensive side of the football. They shored up that defense. Obviously, they had the signing of Stephon Diggs on offense, and if you want to go a year before that, they signed Hunter Henry as well on offense. But they weren't big spenders in terms of how much money they spent on their offense this offseason. They put a high price or prioritized spending on their defense, and it's paid off.
There was a quarterbacks roundtable on NFL Network the other day, and they talked about Sam Darnold, and they said one of the things that they've seen this season over last season, which he had a good season last season too. They said his under Kubiak, his decision making has improved dramatically. Also, they said he's thriving in a system that's built around timing, movement, and play action. As long as they can run the ball, and that's the caveat that they put out there, they feel that Darnold will be fine. If they can't run the ball, that screws up anything with regard to what we just talked about, which is a system built on timing, movement, and play action.
Yeah, and that's if they were ever going to be successful, that's going to be the way that they do it, is they have to run the football. We talked about it with New England and how they have the worst of the two run games in this football game.
Mhm.
But if they're able to stop Kenneth Walker, because it is now Kenneth Walker, there's no more Zach Charbonnet. He tore his ACL against San Francisco. He's done. So it's got to be Kenneth Walker because I don't have faith in their backups, of which I can't remember off the top of my head. However, I did see them play, obviously, against the Rams. But these aren't guys that are going to come in and they're not going to replace Zach Charbonnet. It's just not going to happen. Kenneth Walker is their bell cow back. He's got to stay upright. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to have the stamina to make it through the full 60 minutes of this football game, getting the lion's share of these carries, something that he hasn't done all year.
They had Andy Reid on, and they asked him for some keys. So I'm gonna throw these keys out from from the Super Bowl coach himself. He said he looks at it the Patriots O line versus Seattle's pass rush. Seattle wants to collapse the pocket, force quick decisions. New England, on the other hand, wants to stay on schedule and avoid anything that's third and long. Darnold versus the Patriots secondary says New England has a wonderfully creative way of disguising coverages, possibly, as he said. And this is Andy Reid, so he knows his offense. New England disguises their coverages better than anyone in the league at this point in time. He's talking about the AFC at this point. And he said, for Darnold to be effective, and this is where he said is the key thing. He says, Sam has been a fantastic, he's talking about the rebound. He says he couldn't be happier for him because he understands how, some quarterbacks get stuck in the morass of the NFL, but once they get the chance to shine, he says he likes seeing that. But he said the problem with Darnold is if he gets impatient, he will make mistakes. If he makes mistakes against Seattle, it will cost them dearly. And I think that's pretty much a fair statement about Sam.
Yeah, it's a fair statement. I think you also have to. He hasn't been as turnover prone through the air, but Drake May's put the football on the ground a good number of times. You talked about that Seattle pass rush and the way they like to collapse the pocket. Again, I've talked about it. It's got to be on Will Campbell and that left side of the offensive line. They've got two rookies over there. Will Campbell, Jared Wilson plays guard next to him, I believe. So it's a young left side of this line that protects Drake May's backside. They've been the starters all year. As long as they've been healthy, they have been at least. They've been the starters all year, and they have to hold up on that blind side because what Drake May has not done a good job of is he has not felt that pressure coming from the backside, and he does not have tremendous ball security early in his dropbacks. He's very prone to have it. They separate the ball security two hands together. Drake May kind of likes to hold the football out here and have this hand almost kind of hover, and it's not something that's good for protecting the football. It's something that bit him against Houston. I would assume that it's been a point of emphasis going into that AFC title game, and I assume it's been a point of emphasis since then as well.
Probably, holding on to the ball. That's some of the things. It's funny how many quarterbacks, you would think they would understand, right?
Yeah.
But how many of those guys hold that ball like a loaf of bread as they go running down the field, and since, especially since what I would say, just for me, I don't know, you've observed the NFL as well, and college for that matter. There has been in the past, I'm going to say 3 to 5 years, an incredible urgency from defensive backs to punch the ball out.
Mm-hmm.
And in some regards, they forget the damn tackle and just continue to try to punch the ball out, which, okay, if you can get it free, good. But otherwise, you're letting a guy get an extra 2 or 3 yards because you're smacking at the ball. But if the quarterback's not holding it, they'll knock it out.
Yeah, they absolutely will. It's the style that we're talking about with that hand that hovers versus kind of holding it in one hand. It is really something I think was kind of popularized in the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers mold, the gunslinger mold. But like there's extremes because you got the guys that are real loose with it and like kind of don't pay attention, or you've got the guys that were taught how to play quarterback by Jimbo Fisher and they hold
Right.
it with two hands right here above their face. If you
Right.
think I'm kidding, go back and watch like Jimbo Fisher when he had Haynes King at quarterback at
Right.
Texas A&M, and I want you to go watch Haynes King now. This past year at Georgia Tech, it's a world's difference
Well,
in the way
James
they
Winston.
football. Yeah, Jameis. I mean, Jameis, when he was at FSU, when he started out, man, he held that thing high. And it was like a
Mhm.
high step back.
Right.
It's wild. It looks unnatural. And I think that's the reason why guys hold it with one hand is it's
Mhm.
something that feels more relaxed and more natural to do. And you feel a little more
Mhm.
comfortable in the pocket when you're throwing that. But, there's give and take. Would you rather feel a little bit more uncomfortable and most likely hold on to the football if you get popped from behind? Or do you want to feel a little bit more comfortable? Maybe you're in a good rhythm and you're feeling more
Mhm.
comfortable, and you want to keep that comfort level at the risk of dropping the football if you get some blindside pressure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's turn away from the game for now. We'll come back to it tomorrow. One of the fun things about the Super Bowl has always been the commercials, and even those of us who want to watch the game always kind of, I've always been interested in what the commercials were like in early game, early in the Super Bowl era when there were so many blowouts. Actually, the commercials might have been the best part of the game. So what do we got going on this time? Well, it looks like Apple, and Apple hasn't bought a spot in a long time. They're returning with basically kind of a cinematic, big budget, um, feature with A-list actors and such. My guess is that they're going to be pushing not as much the phones or the computers or all that, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be an opportunity for them to push Apple Plus for streaming.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, streaming services are all the rage, all the
Mhm.
popularity thing.
Mhm.
And you would assume when they're emptying the tank like that, there's
Mhm.
not, their products at this point sell themselves based on name and
Right.
brand value. Um, so it's where are you going to justify spending that money? What kind of
Mhm.
product needs more of an audience? And you would direct your attention to their streaming service.
Well, I mean, look, if you're looking at Apple's ad budget, as much as the money that you pay into the Super Bowl cost you, right?
Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket
Oh
to
yeah.
Apple's bottom line. Some of these companies, it's tough, but in case of Apple, not so much. So we'll see how that works. Budweiser's back as always. This time, I mean, Budweiser's done. They've gone from one kind of a yin to yang situation. They're now pushing that nostalgic Clydesdales type of emotional nostalgia driven spots. So
Hmm.
I think that's probably what we're going to see there. Bud Light, what we're going to see, of course, is Peyton during the Bud Light commercials.
And Shane Gillis.
And Shane Gill is right. Good
Mhm.
point. Doritos, they've been fun. I got to give them credit. So I imagine they're going to continue the comedy routine and the fast,
Mhm.
paced commercial situation. Pepsi, they're teasing out a music-driven ad with some very surprising cameos of some famous artists. So that could be interesting. All the automakers that are in there, and that's of course Ford, Chevy, the whole group. They're leaning heavy into EVs. They got a lot of big names and also a lot of humor. So we'll see how that works out. So
I
go ahead.
this is a little not completely off topic, but last year the one that resonated with, or I still remember. Well, they still run it, but
Hmm.
Jeep ran one with Harrison Ford that I thought was
Yeah,
really good last year.
that was clever. That was clever. His name is Ford, but he drives a Jeep.
Hmm.
Uh, which growing up in a Ford family, I thought that was kind of funny. Um, all right, let's move over to the prop bets. Now, I know we have a lot of people here who are gamblers for the first time. All right, let me give you a little bit of of advice only because I don't want to see anybody lose money. Okay, a lot of these are sucker bets. Okay, and by the way, just for the record, prop bets cannot be used in a in a let's say you want to do a parlay. You cannot use a prop bet in a parlay. Okay, and there's a limit on how much you can bet on a prop bet. And the reason that is because let's say the person who's singing the national anthem, right? Because the fan favorites are always what's the length of the national anthem. That's kind of the first one on there. Whoever's singing the national anthem could put $1 million down on themselves and and clean up. So there's always a limit to how much you can spend on a prop bet. Okay, so know that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think they included that limit because a few years ago there was a guy who did this. He went out and he placed like, I don't know, it was like $100,000 on whether or not there would be a streaker at the Super Bowl. And when you get like plus 600 odds or whatever he got in terms of his odds, these are ridiculous odds. He's got a crazy payout. So what does he do? He takes the money, he takes some extra money out. He goes to the Super Bowl and he streaks and he wins. There's nothing you can do about
it. Actually, what in that particular, the one you're talking about, was a guy by the name of Mattress Max. Now, Mattress Max is very famous in the betting world. He literally he's a man. It lives in Houston. He has sells beds and mattresses throughout all of the Southwest, and he's a very, very successful businessman. But he loves to bet. So Mattress Max, the year, I can't remember the year, the first year that Houston won the World Series in recent days, but he had so much money on that game that he personally moved which is one person now, moved the line in such a way that whenever the Astros won, they literally took the money to his plane on, in the back of a Brinks truck and loaded it on the plane on these huge stacks of cash, which I wouldn't have. That I think was more of a show thing than it was anything else, because you'd have to be an idiot to want to take all that money back in a plane and then hope that whenever you land on the other side that there is also some armed guards at the airport when you get there. But it was Mad Max, and what Mattress Max did is he hired a kid to do it and paid him 20 grand.
So the report that I'm looking at, or the one that I'm thinking of, was but it was that COVID Super Bowl in 2020.
Oh, in Tampa?
Yeah, where a guy by the name of Yuri Andrade bet $50,000 at plus 750 that a streaker would run on the field, and then fulfilled it himself, which would have led to roughly $374,000 of winnings. However, it does appear that he was not able to. So collect. It appears that he was denied his $375,000 payout. Let's see here.
I don't remember. That's funny. I don't remember a streaker in the 2020 game.
Let's see. I'm trying to find where they. I'm very curious. It was reported by Fox Sports 97.9 that he wasn't able to. Well, here we go. Business Insider. So the reason it fell apart is because he told people that's what he was doing. Like, he publicized that's what he was doing. That's the reason why. If he had just ran on,
shut up,
gotten arrested and went home to the house after he posted bail, he probably would have been fine.
Yeah, he'd have been in good shape.
But it appears that, let's see.
Well, while you're looking, let me throw out a few of these others. The color of the Gatorade bath. Okay, the first commercial after kickoff. Well, that wouldn't be, again, if you're in the network business, if you're working at NBC, you know exactly every one of the commercials, so you know what the first commercial is going to be. The first player to score is always one of the big ones. Will there be a flea flicker? Who knows? Will a lineman score a touchdown? The number of times the broadcast will show the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. And will the coin toss be heads or tails? Those are the most popular prop bets out there. I'm going to throw. You're talking about broadcasting, right? I think I'd throw one in there because Collingsworth is doing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Chris has this thing. He goes, now you know this guy. And
now here's a guy.
Yeah, and here's a guy, right? So I'm wondering what the over under would be on Chris's use of the phrase. There's a guy on that one. So that would be kind of a fun, bet around the room. Just kind of when you're doing your Super Bowl party, just to say how many times, I'll tell you what, during a regular season game, I wouldn't want to do a drinking game with that because you might get drunk real fast with Chris in that routine.
Yeah, nobody would remember what game you watched. That drinking game for the heaven forbid you do that drinking game during a Kansas City Chiefs game.
Oh my God,
Collinsworth is calling. Oh man, nobody's going home that night. Nobody's going to know where they are that night.
No designated driver on that one. Good God. So that's wild. It's funny. So those are your prop bets for the weekend, just to play with it. But again, I would strongly suggest if you are a first-time gambler to be extremely careful. Honestly, there's so many things that go into this game. It's not, I've spent a lot of time around some guys who've won and played this game, won this game. I've covered the game many times myself. These are two teams that haven't. The teams have been there. The franchises, I should say, have been there. These teams have not. And so when you run out on the field in a Super Bowl situation, you'll see a lot of players who basically are hyperventilating, not because of the what it's going to be like in San Francisco area on Sunday, but because this is it. This is they've been penned up all the last 4 or 5 days. They've been penned up just getting ready for it, thinking about it, and then of course you got to sit around and wait until 6:30 to kick off. So you're going to spend most of the day hanging out, just getting ready for the game. Go ahead.
It drives me crazy, and I do not understand. It's in the NFL. It's in college football as well. We play a regular season under a certain structure all year. Like the only time you get a 2-week break is when you have a bye. Sure. That's the only time when you don't play a game in 2 weeks. Why on God's green earth do we go from playing a game every week throughout the playoffs as well, playing a game every week to all of a sudden now we need 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl? Like, what's it doing? You're not getting healthy in an extra week. All you're doing is it just feels like you just got more time to sit on it and stew on it.
Well, to be honest, the reason is money. Okay, which shouldn't surprise anybody. The league likes the time that they can set up the situation so they know, all right, we need to get X sponsors from A to B where they're going to be. It's a logistical nightmare if they did it in 1 week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they do it. It's a league thing. It has nothing to do with the networks. They could care less. It would have worked out a whole lot better for NBC because they got the Olympics. So you got Tirico doing the Super Bowl, and then he's got to get on a plane and fly to Italy to take up his role on Tuesday for for the Winter Olympics. So I got a story coming out with Mike tomorrow about the fact that this is he and Bob Heisted. Bob is the producer of the game. He and Bob, are literally getting on a private jet the moment the game is over, and getting on and flying to Italy, where they'll be part of the Olympic situation. As a matter of fact, NBC is going to roll out the Olympics prior to the game. They're going to have some Sunday morning Olympic programming, and then after the game, they're going to go right into Olympic programming once the game is over. So, so that's it. By the way, we Italy's a 6-hour difference from the East Coast of the United States. So, what you're going to be watching on Sunday night after the Super Bowl is nothing live. So, it'll be that primetime package that they put together. So,
Mike,
go ahead.
Mike has I would consider what the job that Mike has a dream job. But Lord, it just shows there's downsides to every job, because that has got to be the world's worst flight. Immediately going from the Super Bowl on the West Coast and having to fly directly to Europe to cover the Olympics.
I'm thinking, let's see, what would that be?
It's got to be like
from
16 hours.
From Frisco to DC is a 4.5, 5-hour flight, depending on the weather. So let's assume for the moment, and this is a big assumption, that the weather's actually going to be cold. I don't know where the snow is, but it's going to be brutally cold in the East Coast. So let's assume that everything is fine. They fly to New York. It's another 8 hours from New York. Yeah. And again, you're going into Milan, so you're going into an area that there's a mountainous area around it, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing the Winter Olympics there. So it's probably going to be, when it's all said and done, around 17 hours, something like that. But again, he's on a private jet, so that does kind of soften the blow.
Yeah, I bet it's a little different, flying private than sitting economy and on a United flight for 17 hours.
Yeah, my guess is that they probably, if they're flying that distance, they're going to probably fly Frisco to New York, and then they'll, have a layover for just a couple of minutes, make sure the jet gets tanked up, and make sure that that they can do. It's not that I don't think the Gulfstar can make it from Frisco to Italy, but you don't want to ever take any chances on that. But
no.
But again, that's a champagne problem right there, my friend. You're doing the Super Bowl, which is Mike's first. Yeah, it's Mike's first to go off to then jump into the Winter Olympics.
There's worse problems to have in the world for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't make it any more fun.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't get out of here without throwing some stuff out for you, because I know you love to deal in this topic. On3 took a look at the signing classes. Now, I believe Georgia was number 5 on the list, which isn't bad by any stretch of imagination.
In terms of their overall signing class, or are we talking money spent?
I don't. No, not on money spent. Overall signing.
In terms of the overall ranking, I believe they finished 5th. Yeah.
I mean, that's On3. So I mean, look, they're pretty good.
They've got a composite that brings together all of their recruiting sites.
They're tracking
ESPN. Yeah.
Right. Their tracking's pretty good. I trust the guys at On3.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But On3 was not kind. I think that's the best way of putting it. Um, USC, Texas Tech, Miami were the top three spenders,
Mm-hmm.
and they all three of them forget that $20.1 million number.
Yeah.
They all went north of 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
I don't
that's,
know how they're going to figure that one out because
yeah,
they square that circle, and I'm not sure how the hell that's going to come out.
I think it's really more of a blatant disregard for the cap that's been set upon, and more basically daring somebody to enforce that cap upon them. That seems to be the way that I see it, and in a similar way with like tampering. Like, should you go back to that case with Clemson and the linebacker Luke Farrelly, who was on campus at Clemson, wound up at Ole Miss. You know, you had proof of contact directly from the head coach to the recruit. And it's something where, yeah, it's wrongdoing, but at the same time, you know, force them to do something to us, like force our hand in enforcing some of these rules, because right now the NCAA can enforce nothing. They can enforce eligibility requirements. They can't enforce a damn thing. So yeah, I mean, in that case, you take these rules that have been set in front of you and challenge them, because the odds are right now that everybody else can do it. So, you know, make the NCAA win in court, which is something that they have been incapable of doing.
They haven't won in court in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of this is we now have a system where you're allowed to spend money. Okay. Yep. I think it would be very difficult to defend that $20.1 million mark when, you know, we're in a, what in essence is a, there's no salary cap. I mean, they can't enforce that. They put that as a marker, right? There's nothing there that says we can enforce anything. Okay. So if you go into an open court, a judge is going to say, you know, we'll go back to our baseball, right? You can yell all you want to about, you know, the Mets giving $700 million to Juan Soto, but it's the price of doing business. You know, if that's what the guy wants, if they feel that they want to spend it, if the market bears it, fine. If the market bears Miami or SC or Texas Tech spending north of $30 million on their college teams, I don't see I really don't see a court where they're gonna win.
Yeah, no, they've been fighting an uphill battle in terms of these things, and I think a big reason why they're losing all of these cases is the language in their rules seems very vague and a lot of times two-sided. Like the lawyers in the Charles Bediako case have essentially, they've asked for a comprehensive list of all of the former European pros that are playing, which is a fair point. Now the NCAA could also fight back and give them a list of players currently active in the NCAA that willingly chose to forego their final years of eligibility in hopes of pursuing a professional career. That list is one, and it's Charles Bediako. But still, it's something where they have a legitimate point, and I think by rule, you know, that's a professional league those guys are playing in over there in Europe, so they'll have a legitimate case to be made
if they choose to go after it and see what happens. But you know, I don't know. Look, if there's a way to get money, they'll figure it out. And I don't think that you know, I look at schools like Georgia and others who realize, I mean, Kirby Smart's not going to go out and tap guys on the shoulder and say, hey, how about getting us an extra $10 million out there? That's just not the way he rolls. He's old school, and he rolls the way old school coaches roll, and it succeeds for him. You know, he gets his players. There's no, I mean, I'll take number 5 in the ranking every year. You want to give it to me? I'll take it right now.
Yeah.
Because, very few people evaluate talent any better than he does.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I wouldn't be concerned about that. The thing with
Yeah.
the Miami and the, Texas Tech and SC, being honest, I'm a little surprised SC came out as number one. That surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's interesting. They paid in On3's article, they're talking about some of the highest paid guys. There was three names that stuck out in terms of three of the highest paid at their position. It was Jared Curtis at quarterback, Jackson Cantwell at tackle, and for USC they landed tight end Mark Bowman.
Right.
You look at all three of those guys. Two of those guys were Georgia leans late into their cycle until literally like the waning hours before their commitments, when some fairly large dollar amounts got tossed at Mark Bowman and Jackson Cantwell, and Jared Curtis was a Georgia commit. I think it tells you a lot about what Kirby Smart's doing on the recruiting trail, despite having don't get it wrong, Kirby Smart has a self-imposed limitation when it comes to NIL. Like there are rules that he sets upon himself in terms of the NIL and the way he wants to manage his roster that he will not go past. But that tells you kind of where these guys were at, because I think the dollar amount that I remember for Jackson Cantwell, the offensive tackle, was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4 million that Miami's paying for a freshman tackle, which is insane. And USC is a place in one of the strongest recruiting grounds in Southern California.
Right.
So you get your money in order, you get everything right, then yeah, USC's got a pretty daggum good selling point when they're right down the road for a lot of these Southern Cal kids. And they can pay them just as well as anybody else in the country.
Well, yeah, and they're usually battling against Oregon or somebody like that. And just for the record, I don't in any way, shape, or form begrudge any of these kids who take that money.
No,
you got families. You got a family to look after, right?
This is what upsets me about the process, though. It still seems taboo to say like it was about the money. Like no one faults a guy in the NFL for signing the deal that offered him the most money. The only reason that people fault someone for signing a deal that offers them the most money in the MLB is when they're going to the Dodgers, right?
Right.
And you don't hear it about the NBA either. Like these guys are allowed to chase their money professionally. Like it's not a headline. It's still seemingly very taboo to say like I did this because of the money. That's fine. Just say you're doing it because of the money, though. Don't get up there and tell us that these decisions, it was the best decision for me. Tell us it was about the money. It's fine. It's legal. You're allowed to own it. Why are we still acting like it's some illegal taboo thing that you're taking the highest dollar amount?
To your point, you could say, look, I had a lot of incredibly good offers out there from schools, which I have tremendous respect for the coaches who came and I met with. I mean, couldn't respect them anymore. But at the end of the day, this has got to be about what's good for my family and me in the long run. So I took the deal because I feel that I can be successful. Pick the school, Texas Tech, USC, Miami, whatever.
Yep.
And I think people would say, okay, that's cool. Give the people who tried to recruit you the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
And just say, look, at the end of the day, this is a business decision.
Yeah. Well, that's
all it is. It really is just a business decision.
Yeah, I think there's a really good example of this. And again, we're going to go back down the Georgia path because it's the one that I know the best. But last recruiting cycle, there was a guy by the name of Justice Terry. He was a defensive lineman, top in his class at the position. He was a heavy Georgia lean for a while. And then at the 11th hour, a team that was not even considered in the mix for Justice Terry, it was Ohio State and it was Georgia. Those were believed to be the two teams. And then in the last 24 hours of Justice Terry's recruitment, Justice Terry, when it came time to sign, put a Texas hat on. And when he got up there, he was very blunt and honest. He said, this is a business decision. When he was talking about the reason he made his decision, he said it was a business decision. Exact words verbatim. And then you have a guy this year and Tyler Atkinson, a number one linebacker from East Georgia, not all that far from Athens. Georgia led in his recruitment for a lot of the time. Late in his cycle, right before he's about to announce his commitment, all of a sudden all the momentum shifts to Texas. And he gets up there and he's like, man, this is about Texas recruitment of linebackers, their development of linebackers, which when you're tossing Texas development of linebackers up against what Georgia's done at the linebacker position since Kirby Smart's been in Athens, it's a laughable comparison unless this guy has really convinced himself of that, which I guess is a reasonable possibility. But Texas also fired their defensive coordinator in favor of somebody who was on Georgia's staff already.
Right.
So, there's some give and take, but I respect the honesty a lot more because you're not fooling anybody when you sign. Like Darian Mensah's not fooling anybody. Like if he said well, I just love Miami. That's the reason I wanted to go to Miami. You're not fooling anybody if you give us that. We know why you're going to Miami. And it's the fine reason. It's an okay reason. We just got to stop treating it like something taboo that isn't allowed. It's completely allowed.
And we'll close on this one, but I will give Mario Cristobal some credit because Cristobal said after the championship game, and they were talking to him. This is a couple days after. About the way he goes and he doesn't recruit hard for the quarterback spot. He goes for the guys in the portal.
Yeah.
And he said, look, the way the rules are set up, I can do this. Why would I go out and recruit somebody that's going to take me a year and a half to teach when I could get somebody who I know can play? Yep. And I know they can play in our system. He said it's the way the rules are set up. If you want to change the rules, change the rules.
Yep.
But until you change the rules, I'm going to spend my time and effort getting linemen and getting other position players, which I will recruit hard out of high school. But when it comes to quarterback, no, I don't need to. I can go and pick somebody in the portal. Yep. He said, now, that being said, that guy may not work out for us. Who knows? But I think my chances of picking a good quarterback out of the portal is a hell of a lot better than me grabbing somebody off of a high school team. And I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah. And it's something that's worked for him 2 years in a row now. They got Cam Ward for a year. It worked. Right. They had Carson Beck for a year. It worked. Right. Now they're getting Darian Mensah for a year. And honestly, based on the way the ACC looks, based on the way the ACC looks, you would assume that's probably going to work out pretty well too for Miami.
By the way, one last thing, because I know we have a lot of Big 12 people out there. The fact that the ACC out-recruited the Big 12 in this particular cycle, other than now, let me qualify that. BYU had a good stint, as did ASU and Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know Texas Tech. So those were the four. Yeah. But they still got out recruited big time by ACC teams. So I know they're out there, and I know they get angry when we say it. But there are people who still want to play for other teams that are not in the Big 12. So there you go. And I'm very proud of my USF Bulls, who came in 74th out of the 75 top 75 recruits from On3. Thank you for that. But poor old Alex Golesh, he didn't have a good situation at Auburn either.
No, he was not able to. You take that with a grain of salt. This is obviously he was going to do a lot of his work in the portal,
which he did.
Yeah. At the time that he got to Auburn, there was not a lot of time left on that class. If they decommitted, the odds of getting them back in the fold were slim to none. And if they were still there, they were going to stay there. They were committed to Auburn, not that coaching staff. So really what he had in the barn was what he was going to be able to work with in terms of Alex Golesh at Auburn.
Well, we wish him well. He's a good guy. All right. Tomorrow, one last swat at the Super Bowl. And
I
we'll
got
give you, what's
I got
that?
two I got two little closing notes for
Oh,
you.
go ahead. Go ahead. Sure.
Not related. They aren't related to each other, and they don't relate to anything that we've talked about today. But
Okay.
Scotty Scheffler today shot his first round over par in 33 rounds. He shot
Wow.
33 straight rounds that he didn't go over par for 33 straight rounds. This is the first time that Scotty Scheffler,
This is a waste management?
yeah, this is the first time he has shot over par since last June in the third round of the Travelers Championship.
Wow.
And then you also have Tarek Skubal, who actually won his arbitration case against the Detroit Tigers and is making the most money of any arbitration winner ever, and $32 million this year, which is still $6 million than what the Detroit Tigers are going to be paying Framber Valdez annually for the next 3 years.
Oh man. Those arbitration things are, I mean, if you attend the arbitration,
Mm-hmm.
it's bizarre because you've got on one hand, this is a guy you want for a long time, right?
Yep.
You don't piss him off. He's a good guy.
Yep.
But what you're doing is you're basically saying, I'm sorry, he's not worth what he's asking.
Yeah.
If he's not worth what he's asking, and you've got, why here over whatever it is you want to spend, how are you going to sign this guy in the
Yeah.
long run? Because you're not making friends and influencing people here.
Yeah. He it's something that has fractured relationships in the past between a team and a player, because you're going in there and telling this guy why he sucks, basically. That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
Why is he not worth this money?
Right.
So you're essentially trying to go in and in front of a guy who is on your team and is one of your assets, you're trying to devalue your asset right in front of their face.
Yeah. Not a pleasant thing to do. Most of the successful teams try to settle those things early on.
Out of court.
And if you are someone like Skubal, why the hell you're not sitting down and trying to work out a long-term deal with him makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
This arbitration, forget the arbitration. Let's sit down.
Let's ink a deal.
I'm sorry?
Let's get you back here for another 6 or 7 years, maybe 10.
Yeah. Just sit back and say, no, let's tear this up. Let's sit down and talk. Normally, if that happens, that person is going to stay with you.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to arbitration.
It's not something that Detroit was willing to do, though. They weren't willing. They aren't going to be willing to go to Tarek's number, I don't think.
Well, you take him and Skeens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what the number is.
Well, if Paul Skeens continues to pitch the way that he's pitched up until this point in his career, by the time he reaches arbitration, he can blow that Tarek Skubal number out of the water if he wants to.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
If he makes it to arbitration with the Pirates.
I was about to say, if they get to that money deal, I mean, because Skeens would probably be, I bet you Skeens could go north of 40.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would assume, unless now, granted, we also have this impending player lockout coming next year that we don't know.
Happen. I hate to say it, but I think we're going to be watching Korean baseball because I don't see any way they're going to resolve this, because the owners don't want a cap and the players don't want a floor, and the owners don't want a floor either. So
yeah,
I don't see how they're going to figure this one out. And it's typical baseball. Just when things are going right, let's just blow it up.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy. All right. Well, we'll keep it. That's interesting, Scotty, because that course has usually been one he's played well.
It is. It's the place where he won his first tournament
on
the PGA Tour back in 2022.
Yeah.
It's a place that's not really hard to get around, all things considered. It can give you problems if you're getting out of the way. But Scotty Scheffler, when I was watching, he was having a really hard time. And this has happened before in his career. It happened last year. You just get overshadowed because he won 2 major championships and a couple other events. So it was a normal Scotty season. But early in that season, he had trouble where he was pulling a lot of stuff. He liked to pull his driver, and that was something he did today. He birdied the first hole, but then on that second hole, he stuck one in the water, walked away with a 5. He had a double bogey, which is uncharacteristic of him. Mm-hmm. So there was a stretch where I think the stretch he went on was he bogeyed 18, he bogeyed 1, and he doubled 2. Mm-hmm. I think was the stretch, and it's just an uncharacteristic stretch for him. His short game wasn't good. His chipping was bad. I mean, there was an instance where he chipped one, and it landed on the very front edge of the green, and it rolled back down to his feet. That's not something that Scotty Scheffler does. No. It was one of the worst rounds of golf I've ever seen Scotty Scheffler play, and when he got to the clubhouse, he was 2 over par. So
interesting. And that course is they're out in the valley. I mean, it's pretty flat for Arizona.
I tell you what, if I shot 2 over par, you wouldn't hear from me for 3 days. I'd be out celebrating.
I was about to say I would put that in my pocket, and I may quit. That'd be the last time I ever played the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have that scorecard, bronzed.
Yeah, I'd walk to the house and call it a career.
That's right. Put the clubs on eBay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that 2 over, I'd be happy. But I don't know. I wouldn't count. Who's leading the tournament?
It was, I believe, Chris Gotterup and Matthew Fitzpatrick. The last I checked.
What's the score?
It was at 8 under. There's a chance that Gotterup moved it to 9. Okay, so
Scotty has a lot of work to do to get to the top. Okay.
So Fitzpatrick faltered down the stretch. He bogeyed his last 2 holes. He finished at 6 under, and Gotterup finished at 8 under. Gotterup played a clean slate with 1, 2.
No bogeys.
He had 6 birdies and an eagle.
Whoa!
And all pars to go along with that. He played fantastic.
Yeah, a clean slate.
Yeah, wow. Especially on that back 9 worth of holes.
Well, the back time, that's the easiest part of that course.
Oh yeah. Big time. 2 par 5s, a gettable par 4 as well.
Those par 5s might as well be par 4s.
Yeah, I mean they feel like places that you're going to make 4 every time. That's part of the reason that Scotty Scheffler's day looks the way it does, is because he went about his business on those par 5s and made 4s.
What happened to where did they get the eagle?
The eagle for Gotterup was on, I think it was
the front or the back.
It's 13. Yeah, it was 13.
Okay, so it was on the back.
Yeah,
okay.
He was putting from
out of his mind.
Really sloped piece of the fringe. He was lucky to not have it funneled down off the back of that hole. And it was a double breaker, breaking hard left to right, and then it broke back to the left just a little bit at the end. It was impressive. He played it well.
There you go. That's why he's the leader in the clubhouse, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he won the Sony Open. That was when
there
I was
you go. That's the tournament you were at.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's on a roll right now.
Got a little bit. Give him a little luck there. Yeah, if he would win there, that's 2 tournaments out of 4.
And he finished. People forget last year he finished really strong for his season last year. He won the Scottish Open and then came top 5 at the Open, following it up. So he had a really good end to his season last year.
Sounds like it. All right, my brother. We've had a lot of fun here today. I hope you all have as well. We will talk Super Bowl tomorrow, and then starting after the Super Bowl, we're going to start talking a little less about football, a little more about baseball and all that, and golf and some other stuff as we transition from everything football to everything more sports. So I hope that not like, I mean, Matt and I, we're going to be talking we talk college football 24/7 all year long. So that part ain't going to change. But baseball season, my friends, is just about a week and a half away from people going to go to pitchers and catchers. So, and we got the World's Baseball Classic coming up. We got some really fun stuff. So, you know, after we put away the Super Bowl, we definitely have other plans, and we hope that you join us because, we're total sports fans. Just not not just one sport. We got them all. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, look forward to it. Matt, have a wonderful day, and
Thanks,
tomorrow
Bob.
we'll get some more of your recipes for the weekend on what we should be doing with our tailgate parties and our Super Bowl parties, and we'll go from there. All right, my friend. 12:30 tomorrow. Remember, everybody. 12:30 on Fridays for us. Okay. Until then, for Matt, I'm Jim. Have a good day. You know.